Hello, my human family. This is Christy. You know who I am. Today I have Aria, who is, libertarian priestess of the Reformed Satanic Church. I'll get this right.
Yes.
An interesting person. One of us nasty transes is.
So I'm told.
Yeah, it's true.
One of them they're queer sexuals. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be assigned female at birth. You didn't know that you didn't know anything back then, so you didn't know what you were assigned.
Good point.
And basically interesting person. Oh, rouser of rabbles.
Yeah, that one's accurate.
Hello, Aria. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
You're the first person I disagree with, but not really for most of the things.
That's always a good place to be. I mean, disagreement is good. It's how we, develop and grow. So there's nothing wrong with a bit of disagreement. I mean, as long as it can be done in good faith, and I think that's where a lot of disagreements break down because they're not being had in good faith.
Oh,
Everybody wants to put words into everyone else's mouth and disregard what the other person is actually saying. That's not a good faith discussion or a good faith disagreement. That's just two obstinate, stubborn people barking at each other.
Pretty much. And the shadow is of a cat.
Yeah.
Because that was perfect timing. And I didn't ask the cat's name before.
There are two of them. The calico whose shadow you're seeing, that's Rainbow. She's in front of me. She desperately wants to be in my lap, but she can't be in my lap because the other, Dinner, is in my lap. And my lap just isn't big enough for both of them. So she's trying desperately to get my attention and he's not going anywhere. But hey, I sat down and I started doing something and it means they have to be all over me at all times.
Yeah, that's kind of the cat thing. They're intrusive. They're intrusive.
Yeah.
And
I do love them though.
Unless they want you to leave them alone. Pretty much like me,
That's Rainbow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Hi, Rainbow. All right. So just before, anybody who watches this on a regular, y'all know that I talk to people for a while beforehand. Maybe a little bit too much. Again, I'm lonely, it's sad, and shut in, and all of that.
Aren't we all? I mean, especially right now.
Yeah, really. And you were running for sheriff, and I want to hear as much about this as humanly possible.
I am running for sheriff, yes. So it initially started out, to go all the way back, I ran for sheriff 2 years ago as a libertarian candidate. And I didn't have the money for signs or anything like that then. So it was a very weak campaign. And that year, by fortunate coincidence, the Libertarians were an official party in the state of New Hampshire, which is where I live. So I was able to bypass the primary and get my name on the ballot alongside the Democratic and the Republican candidates. So of course, I lost. I did better of all of the Libertarians who ran in a three-party race here in Cheshire County. I think I did like 4.4% or something like that, which is terrible. I mean, I got my ass handed to me, right? But the other ones, they lost way worse. But the Libertarians lost ballot access that year. Because the governor candidate failed to get 3% or 5% or whatever number it's supposed to be. And the result is that we went back to the drawing board, Ian Freeman and I, we were like, okay, well, people are going to go out, they're going to have to collect these signatures. But what if instead of trying to build our own infrastructure, we just take over this crumbling infrastructure that's already there and use it for our purposes? And of course, here in New Hampshire, Cheshire County and Keene, the crumbling infrastructure is the Republican Party. I mean, they're in total disarray. All of its members are like 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're dying out. And I don't want to be harsh when I say that, but that's the reality of the situation. And they're going to leave all of this infrastructure, all of these inroads just sitting there, totally unclaimed. So we stepped in to claim them. So we switched our party affiliations from Libertarian to Republican. And I hate saying that. It makes me feel dirty when I say that because it does.
Yes.
Because Republicans are, by and large, awful, terrible, stodgy people with whom I don't see eye to eye on anything. And this became very, very clear with the Cheshire County Republican Party and the wider New Hampshire Republican Party. I mean, they just absolutely hate me. So there is the Cheshire County Republican Party, and there are then town and city Republican parties. The one in Keene was no longer existent, so they made Ian Freeman the chair of the Keene Republican caucus, and he wanted me to be secretary. I was like, okay, cool, I'm down for this, let's do it. Well, keeping in mind that this was a completely dead party with maybe 10 to 12 people showing up per meeting, and all of them 70 to 80 years old, and 4 of those people showing up were always, you know, the board members, like the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, the treasurer, those types of people, the at-large people. So there was no real attendance until it came time to vote for secretary, and it was down to me and this woman who had actually been selected by the Cheshire County Republican caucus to run against me. Because initially I was running unopposed, and then they found out that I was running unopposed, and they were like, no, we can't have this. We cannot have this trans Satanist who jokes about burning the American flag as the secretary of the Keene Republican Party. So this girl ran, and they turned out about 20 people for this election to vote for her and then to leave. And that's what made it just so insulting, is that a lot of these people, they did show up just to vote and leave. They didn't stay for the Republican meeting that followed. They just came in. One of them even said, hey, can we get this vote going? I got somewhere to be. I mean, they literally were brought in just to vote against me. And then they left again, and that was it. So
it's a Tammany Hall.
Yeah, it was very much something like that. So they don't like me. And they're always talking about me at their meetings. Like, did you see Aria's Facebook post about burning the American flag or Black Lives Matter or whatever it is that I post about it? Everything I post is going to piss off some Republican, right?
Right.
So finally, another election season came up, and Ian was like trying to find out who was running for what, and I put forward myself to run for state rep for Ward 2. Again, as a Republican, because the Libertarian Party has too much work to even get on the ballot. It's not worth it just to lose the election. Well, the same woman who selected the secretary to run against me is the secretary of the Cheshire County Republicans, and she said, no, I'm going to run for Ward 2 state rep as well. She can't keep me from running, but if she runs against me, then we have to have a primary.
Yeah.
And she's the secretary of the Cheshire County Republican Party. I'm the trans Satanist who jokes about burning the American flag. She's going to beat me hands down among Republicans, and I know this. So I went back to the drawing board, and I saw that no one had filed for sheriff, which was unusual because Earl Nelson had been running for Republican candidate for sheriff for the last 12 years, but he hadn't filed yet. So that Wednesday, 2 days before the filing deadline, I went to Concord and I filed to run for sheriff as a Republican, and he never filed, which means that in November, it's going to come down to an election between myself as the Republican candidate and the current candidate, Eli Rivera of the Democratic Party. So no matter what, I think Cheshire County wins. There's no actual Republican trying to become sheriff. I think they would win more if they voted for me because I'm not going to, do the job. The only part of the job that I would actually do would be to transfer people who had committed aggressive acts like rape, theft, murder, that sort of thing, assault, battery, to the jail. That would be it. If you were busted for a drug charge, I would lose you on the way to jail. And I'm fully aware that if I manage to somehow win, and if I manage to somehow do that, I'm going to end up in handcuffs myself. But hey, I mean, what are you going to do? I'm not putting people in jail for carrying around pot or heroin or meth or whatever. It's not my business what they want to put in their bodies. I don't care what the judge says. They're going to hold the sheriff of the county in contempt of court. I don't think so. It'll be a legal nightmare no matter what's going to happen, and I look forward to fighting it.
The sheriff has broad discretion. Well, I'm just in New York. The sheriffs have broad discretion on who they take in,
They
which
do.
is
It's different here in New Hampshire. The sheriff here is almost powerless, e- except that we have the keys to the jail. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know if I have the legal authority to do any of this, and I don't care about that. I don't care about the legal authority. I have the moral authority to not take people to jail because they were 6 weeks late on their child support payments or their alimony payments, or because they got arrested for having a kilo of cocaine in their trunk.
And
I can talk to them and be like, hey man, you really shouldn't be doing cocaine, and you probably shouldn't be selling cocaine, but that would be the extent of it.
well, evictions would be your purview too.
Are they? I know
Yeah.
in a lot of places they have constables handle those. I don't know what all is in the job description of sheriff. I assume I would find out if I got the job, right?
I hope a training day would probably be good.
But you can find out more about my sheriff campaign at fpolice.com. That's EFFpolice.com. That is the official campaign website. And my site even has F the Police on it, in addition to, Aria DiMezzo for sheriff, F the Police. It's great. We're trying to get me to speak at the Black Lives Matter event because we know the guy who organizes them here in Keene, because, F the Police is a powerful message, and I think it's a good one. We do need to defund the police. We do need to get rid of the police entirely. It's not effective to be sending armed thugs, armed pirates, armed aggressors out to people who are struggling with life. And that's what American society does. Oh no, you're having a mental breakdown? We're going to send people to shoot you. One of my friends had one of these mental breakdowns and was threatening to kill himself, had a gun against his head. What did the police do? They showed up and they shot him. He survived, but what the hell? Suicide by cop shouldn't even be a thing. And he was almost successful with it. He wasn't even trying that. It's just absolutely bizarre. And that's the law enforcement apparatus here in the United States. Of course, no single one of us has the authority or the power or the ability to defund or dismantle the police. And city governments, they're never going to actually do it.
No.
But you can elect a sheriff who won't do the job. He'll just say, no, I'm not doing that. That's immoral. I'm not putting this black man in jail because he did the same thing that this white person who got a $250 fine did. I'm not doing it.
I live in Buffalo, so we this is where we grow the 75-year-old Hispanic men that are supposedly secret agents. That if you heard President Bush talk, oh fuck, I'm old.
Trump.
If you heard President Trump talk about the guy, the guy who got pushed over by the police and cracked his head. That was
I saw that. That was a horrific video. And that's something, that is one thing that Sheriff DiMezzo would do. If that happened here in Keene, I would arrest every cop responsible for that. Every single one of them.
Yeah. Well,
and if they stood by and did nothing, they would also get arrested.
I'm with you on this. He's a very nice man.
I'm sure he is.
I mean, but it doesn't matter if he was an asshole. That's not a thing you do.
I'm going to stand with anyone who protests police brutality. Period.
Yeah, and around here during that particular protest, because that was right at the end of a protest, they went after they went after us transes first.
Yeah, they do that. That's why I went and bought a new gun today.
Yeah,
You're in New York. You can't just do that.
I can't.
Even if you wanted to, and I don't know if you do, but I can't. It's one of the things I love about New Hampshire. I'm like, I want a new gun. All right, let's go buy a new gun.
Well, I have my own things on guns, but which are a little convoluted.
I can imagine. I mean, guns, I'm not a big fan of guns. I'm not a gun expert. I don't know. I can't tell you what the difference is between a P365 and a P365 SAS. those letters, I only know what the hell they are because I went with an expert friend of mine to the gun store today and picked out between those two particular guns. That's the only way I know the difference between them. But otherwise, I can't tell you the difference between like a 38 Special, a 357, or a Colt 40 or a Colt 45. I have no idea. I'm not an expert. I'm not really into guns. But I am from a world where quite frequently I've had to defend myself against people who wish to do me harm.
Yeah.
And in most cases, the best way to do that without actually causing any injury is to whip out a gun. Not to shoot anyone, but to whip out a gun. And that always makes them go away.
New Hampshire's open carry, is it not? Or
New Hampshire is open carry. It's constitutional carry, so you can carry concealed, you can open carry, you can, it's your gun. The only thing you can't do with the gun here in New Hampshire is transport a long gun, like a rifle or a shotgun, in your vehicle with ammunition in the chamber. Otherwise, all bets are off. It's totally legal. Like you can have a 9mm in your console or a 38 with a round in the chamber, but a shotgun, you can't.
Okay.
I don't know why. Because government, I guess.
I don't know why many things about government.
I don't either.
Every time I take the political test, I always get libertarian, communist, which is what I've said I am my entire life, and nobody's ever believed me and said, no, you can't be both. I'm like, except I am, but...
Well, I'm familiar with libertarian socialism. Not so much libertarian communism. That's not a term that I'm familiar with. That's not to say they don't exist or anything like that. I just know that there are, in fact, libertarian socialists. I disagree with them on some issues, but I don't have to agree with everyone. The important thing is that they don't want to force me to live the way they want, and I don't want to force them to live the way that I want.
Pretty much it. I mean,
Yeah.
DemSoc works for me for political, where I try and put my energies, but yeah, it's more a question of just, how have I always put it? Share the wealth and leave me alone. I mean, what is so hard to understand about that one?
That is one of the things frustrating me so much with the banking system right now, in fact, because I sell Bitcoin for more or less for a living. That's what I do. And I'm constantly having banks close my accounts just all over the place. Business accounts, personal accounts, it doesn't matter. They last about 3 to 4 weeks, and then the bank closes them and writes me a cashier's check. And I was talking with a friend of mine who runs the Extra Life chapter here in Keene, New Hampshire. And for those who aren't familiar with, the Extra Life is a part of the Children's Miracle Network hospitals where they do video game streams to raise money for, child cancer patients and all of that. And I was talking to him about it, and it turns out that since March of this year, I've donated like $2,300 and something to him for the Extra Life organization. And that's $2,500 that's going directly to child cancer and child trauma patients and all of these other stuff. And like, how much more of that would I be able to do if I still had my TD bank account that they closed back in January, or the Bank of America account that was closed back in April or May or whatever? It's indicative, I think, of a good person to be able to make money doing something, and their first thought to be to give that to some sort of charity organization. That's why I don't understand people like Jeff Bezos or whoever he is, the Amazon CEO, who's billionaires and all of that. I don't get it. I understand at a certain point, you just have no more need for money.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I'm at that point. Certainly not. I still have to work and all of that. But there is nothing on this earth these people could spend this money on.
No, there's not. And that's kind of where capitalism falls down pretty easily. And it's taken when capitalism fails in a crisis to show people that, and let's see if it works. They don't learn. We don't learn easily. We're Americans. We don't like to learn.
No, and I can appreciate that. Jeff. It's not like Jeff Bezos has $1.5 billion. I don't know what his worth is. It's not like he has that just sitting around in a bank account waiting for him to spend or whatever. That's not the way it is. You know, probably 90% of it is in stocks or bonds or whatever. But all of that could be sold off or distributed or shared if he chose to other organizations. And I'm not saying he should be forced to share that stuff, but if he's not going to, we should shop at a company who is going to do that. And that's where the entire capitalism scheme breaks down, I think. I would agree with you on that. Because in a perfect world, yes, we would have Aria's Amazon competitor that donates 100% of every dollar over $10 million that she has directly to this charity organization. But there are so many things, and you know, libertarians like to say, yeah, but there are so many government regulations in the way preventing you from doing that we don't have a capitalist society. But even if we remove all that, even if we did have a free market, and here I am without the resources to compete with Amazon, regardless of what else is going on, even if people are pissed off at him, there's no mechanism that could exist for me to get the word out in a way that allows me to actually compete and to put enough market pressure on Amazon and Jeff Bezos to cause the change that I wish to see.
Yeah, your Etsy site won't do it.
No, it won't. It won't even come close. Wish is probably the closest thing that's ever come to putting a dent in Amazon. And the only reason for that is because you can get crap there that's for like $1. You just have to wait 6 weeks on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And even then, Wish is nowhere near Amazon in terms of market value. Alibaba maybe, but Alibaba has sort of a monopoly within China, so it's not really a fair competition either.
No. At least on Wish, I managed to get 13 women's sneakers, which
nice. Yeah.
They're hard to come by.
I am perpetually waiting on stuff to arrive that I've ordered from Wish over the last several months. It's always a nice little surprise, though, to go out to the mailbox and discover some package of something that I ordered 5 months ago that I totally forgot that I ordered. I was like, oh, look, this bracelet, in fact, arrived today. It's a little pentagram bracelet. And I ordered it probably in February. So 5 months later, it finally arrived. I totally forgot about it. But yay.
Yeah.
Little surprises in the mail. It's great.
I'm happy to finally get my guitar picks from them, you know.
Oh, nice. I've been using the same guitar pick for about 12 years. And I think that if I ever lose it, I might actually just quit playing the guitar, because it's so perfectly molded to my fingers at this point, and that it's just perfect. It's like not even using a pick.
Well, I use the Dunlop nylons. They get floppy after a while.
I use thin picks, but I have no idea what brand this one is, because it's just all that writing was gone years ago.
Well, you're a libertarian in the hotbed of libertarianism, New Hampshire. You're near Keene. What?
I'm in Keene.
You're in Keene. I thought you were.
I live on the outskirts of Keene, but I am in Keene. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to. I was trying not to dox you too much.
Sorry. I have the Reformed Satanic Church here. I'm super easy to find, but if anybody wants to do that, they should know that I've invested in security cameras and AR-15s. So keep that in mind. Just knock on the door and come say hi. There won't be any problems.
Yeah, same. If people want to go through all my videos, they can pick apart pretty much within a block of where I am.
Yeah. It's one of the issues with being so public and having a church and part of the building that I own and operate. It's really easy for people to find out exactly where I live. I mean, plus, there was that whole debacle with Christopher Cantwell, the crying Nazi, and he knew where I lived, and he didn't dox me, but it's never been a secret where I live. So suddenly all of these Nazis had my address, but none of them did anything. So
that's pretty much what Nazis are about in the U.S. they don't actually do anything except unless they're in large numbers, and
They march with tiki torches, apparently.
yeah,
And they throw tear gas at people and take steroids, allegedly.
and they drive at people, or Christopher Cantwell shooting into a crowd and hitting nothing, which amused me, although it shouldn't have, because that was an asshole move to do.
Yeah,
It amused me
an
that
asshole.
he hit nothing.
Well, he used to have a business card that said, Christopher Cantwell, anarchist, atheist, asshole. And all of that vanished. Well, the asshole part stayed, but the atheist part, I don't think he's still an atheist. I think he's a Christian, and he's caught up in the satanic pedophiles run the world and God Emperor Trump is here to stop them sort of thing. He's certainly not an anarchist. It's nuts. I will never forget sitting down in his studio and looking around and having this moment of lucidity where I realized that this is an actual Nazi that I'm sitting across. Not an internet Nazi. This is a guy who is an actual dyed-in-the-wool Nazi. It was an interesting experience, but I would not recommend it for the faint of heart.
Well, I'm old enough that my stepfather was a Nazi. He was American born, but I don't see a functional difference.
Yeah.
So, it was a strange way to grow up.
I can imagine.
So I have a lot of sympathy for. I actually have a lot of sympathy for them, unless they're doing Nazi things, because there's something fucked up going on with them.
Yeah, a lot of them, in my experience, are just incels, and for whatever reason, they don't have any luck with women, and this makes them very, 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 very angry. That's been my experience with almost all of them.
Well, there's a reason why the party got assigned wives in Germany. They're looking forward to that. See,
because they don't know how to get laid otherwise.
Yeah, pretty much. Although we will never live to see that day, one way or the other, really.
Thank goodness. I mean, most of these people shouldn't have wives, and shouldn't be breeding. Let's you keep that to yourself and let it die with you, please. We don't need that hatred perpetuating into a new generation.
Yeah, no shit. I was always leftist, so it was not to his liking.
Yeah.
He was really cool with me being trans, which he did figure out.
Nice. I was watching my father earlier, I think it was yesterday actually, just post this long anti-democratic screed on one of my sister's Facebook posts. It started out with a discussion about masks, and it just evolved into this borderline incoherent, insane, fever-pitched, full-blown redneck America KK type of nonsense. I was like, this is my fucking father. This is why I don't have anything to do with these people. Are you kidding me, man?
But your sister's all right, yeah?
My sister's all right, yeah. She took a while to come around.
All right.
I can kind of understand that.
I worry. My two sisters, one of them came out all right, one of them,
Yeah.
not so much. Burning the American flag. This is actually something that I don't understand how people. I'm for you can't fuck with my constitutional rights, and you can't burn the American flag. Those you have one or the other. You don't have both of these things.
I would agree. I've never actually burned a flag. If you're referring to when the Republicans got very upset with me, it was because some people stole the American flag from the Brattleboro post office. Brattleboro is a town in Vermont that's just next door to us. I mean, well, it's about 20 minutes away, but yeah, it's not far. And someone stole the American flag from the post office there. and they trashed it and it was discovered or whatever. And all I did was post on Facebook that, hey, if you know who these people are, tell them to contact me because I want to buy them drinks at the bar. And this made the Republicans very upset. I have been to at a place where there was a flag burned. The very first time I went to Fork Fest, there was this dome set up. I think they called it the pirate ship then or something. And someone threw an American flag down on the ground and they set it on fire. They also dry humped it and they did the worm on it and they stomped on it and they lit it on fire. It
Sounds
was
like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, yeah. I was like, dude, this flag isn't worth all of that. Just throw it to the ground and be done with it. But
well, I do tell people that I have burned many. Well, this is actually the first time I'm saying it on here, but I have burned many American flags. I was a Boy Scout.
I don't. Oh. I don't object to the burning of American flags. I just have never bothered to purchase a flag in order to do it. I mean, I'm not going to waste $10 or whatever buying a flag just to burn it. It seems silly to me. But hey, I have pirate flags. I don't burn those.
And this is where libertarianism sometimes intersects with republicanism or conservatism, where you have to buy the thing before you can destroy it because for some reason keeping up capitalist systems, which is
it's a murky area, right? And I don't pretend to know all of the answers. I know that I don't feel bad. Walmart here in the United States, I'm sure you're aware, they decided that on July the 20th, all of their stores are going to require masks.
Right.
So Ian and I have decided that we're going to go into the Walmart here in Keene and not wear masks on the 20th. And a lot of libertarians are upset with us about this because they're all, but this is their private property. And they've made this rule saying you can't do this thing on their private property. You're violating their private property by going and doing it. But that's not the way it is at all, because they've already given up their right to claim private property when they allowed the state to tell them what they can and can't do with their property. They no longer have that as an excuse. If they want to say, oh no, this is our private property and we say you can't do this, that's fine. But they also have to tell that to the government. They say, no, this is our private property. You can't tell us what we can do and what we can't do, or what we can sell and what we can't sell. They can't have it both ways where they pull its private property on us little people and let the state do whatever they want. If they want private property, they have to stand by that. It's just like intellectual property, which I don't believe in, but the same mentality exists in the intellectual property world legally, where if somebody is violating your copyright and you're aware of it and you do nothing about it, you lose all rights to claim copyright over that whatever it is, the work of art or whatever. And that's legal precedent. The same thing is true, as far as I can tell, for actual physical property rights. If you let one person violate your private property rights, then you forever lose the right to go, no, this is private property. And as far as letting people tell them what they can and can't do with their property, business owners are number one in bending over to let the state ream them.
Yes, I would go, well, it's going to be strange. I agree with you on almost all of that, and for incredibly different reasons. Because public accommodations laws and such, if they open to a certain group of people, they have to be able to open to anybody. But that becomes a murky area when it comes to requiring something like masks. I mean, immediate public health risk and all of that.
It does become murky, and people have a point. I'm not upset that they require me to wear a shirt when I go in there. To be fair, I am kind of upset, and this is why I used to do Aria Uncensored, which was this topless show that we streamed on Twitch, where I was topless through the entire thing. because it's screwed up. I don't want to have to wear a shirt just because I'm transgender now. I didn't have to wear a shirt 10 years ago. Why do I have to wear one now? But no, suddenly I do. And that does, in fact, piss me off. I should be able to walk into Walmart with their no shirt policy just like so many guys do, but I can't now. Because now my hair is long and I'm wearing makeup, so it's no longer okay. So, I mean, no, should you be able to walk into Walmart completely naked? If you want, and if they want, I'm 100% for naturalism. I don't think you should have to wear clothes if you don't want to. If you want to walk down the street completely naked, more power to you, man. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to say, no, you have to put on pants. You have to put on pants so that I don't have to look at your penis flopping around. We dealt with this at Forkfest, in fact, at this libertarian gathering of libertarians in the middle of Libertarian, New Hampshire. This guy was super upset because there was this nudist male walking around and someone asked him to put on clothes. And I took the nudist side, the naturalist side. I was like, well, he shouldn't have to put on clothes if he doesn't want to. This is private property. The property owner hasn't said anything to him about it. What right do these other bystanders have to come to him and say, hey, no, I don't want to look at your dick. Can you put on some clothes? And he goes, well, I don't want to see his dick flopping around. Well, you are free to look away. No one is making you look at his dick. You understand that, right? But now you are making him put on clothes. Do you see the lines you're crossing here?
Yep. And oh, buddy, the eyes are up here. You know?
Yeah, right.
You know? What are you looking at his dick at for anyway?
And that's especially infuriating because there is this girl who tans there naked every year from like 8 o'clock in the morning until about 11 o'clock in the morning. Every year she lays out in plain sight of everyone and tans, and no one has ever complained. But no, we got this nudist dude walking around now. Suddenly, it's a huge problem.
Well, this is the excuse for the bathroom things. You know, big hairy guys are gonna go in and pretend to be women.
That's what they say. And you know, it's not an incorrect point in that if a big hairy dude with a beard or whatever said, well, I identify as a woman, so I'm going into the women's restroom, in the worldview that is perpetuated by many of the people on the left, it would be, quote, transphobic to say, no, you can't do that.
No, but I mean, there are circumstantial. I mean, I do know.
My contention is that being trans is more than just a statement that you identify as X or Y.
Yes, but I had to deal with my mom's friend. This is just my example of the topic. My mom came up and visited me a little while after I came out, and her friend refused to call me she, which, you know, fine and all that. Just, you know, avoid pronouns like my mom was doing.
Sure.
And she said, I'll call you she when the process is done. I'm like, I just came out. That is the ending of the process, but there are other things that go with it. It's
no,
like,
I'm with you on that. There is a guy who moved to New Hampshire, to Keene, or Winchester actually, who decided that he was going to transition to a woman and call herself Wendy. And as far as I know, I was the only person here who was like she and Wendy in regard to this person who still had facial hair, still had short hair, so wasn't doing anything to present as female. But hey, you had made it clear that this was your intention. I didn't start out looking like this. I certainly didn't. You know,
no.
You look at pictures of me when I first came out, I had a shaved head. I looked like a Nazi, honestly, because I was wearing a wife beater and all of this other stuff, or I was shirtless and I was built. So, I mean, I looked the way you would expect a Nazi to look. I wasn't a Nazi, but I kind of looked like one. And compare that to today. This is not an instant process. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But it is more than just the pronouncement of I'm identifying as a female from now on. That's not where it ends. That's where it begins. But once it begins, you absolutely should respect that.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid transmedicalism because I'm not a transmedicalist, and I do kind of like they.
I'm not familiar with the term.
Oh, people who think that you have to have the surgery and you have to present
Oh, I'm
pass and stuff.
completely against sexual reassignment surgery. As me individually, I would caution most individuals against it as well, because I think it's something that they would come to regret. Like, I can't speak for all trans women, but my penis has been pretty good to me throughout most of my life. I rather like it, and I can't imagine getting rid of it. Not to be too vulgar or anything, but
yeah, I've got the opposite view, just because it's become something that is interfered with my sex life more than
See, I'm bisexual, so I still date a lot of women, and it's also useful for that.
Well,
I say bisexual,
pansexual,
would be more accurate.
I am pan, but it's my own head space.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely a murky area, but it's a valid question. How do we separate a person who's beginning their transition from male to female from, let's say, Big Jim, who is getting arrested and he's been sentenced to prison for 20 years and he doesn't want to go to the men's prison, so he tells the cops or the judge, well, I identify as a woman. How do we distinguish between the two things? I don't have an answer, and I'm not pretending that I do, but I'm willing to recognize that there is a difference between Big Jim, who wants to use the actual existence of trans people to exploit women for his own benefit, and an actual trans person who is starting out their journey, not intending to exploit anyone, but merely to exist as they desire.
It's one of those questions. Right now, it's obviously not a problem, because going through that much social trouble is a big deal,
Well, it is, and that's what a lot of people don't get. I had this very similar discussion with a former coworker several years ago, when he brought up that exact point of, well, so if I get arrested, I can just tell the cop that I identify as a female and they'll put me in the women's jail. I was like, dude, if you really want to deal with the hassle and the fallout of spending part of your time in the women's jail because you told the judge or the arresting officers that you were a female here in South Haven, Mississippi, you go right the fuck ahead. If you think that's going to be fun, or that's going to end well, or that's not going to ruin you and your family, and your parents are going to continue speaking to you, and your wife isn't going to divorce you, and your kids aren't going to stop speaking to you, if you think any of that isn't going to happen, then you go right ahead. But let me tell you exactly how that's going to happen. First of all, the cops are going to strip search you, even though they never strip search people coming into their jails. They're going to, because they want to know what it means that you identify as a female. This has happened to me in the state of Mississippi. And then you're going to have to deal with the enormous fun parts of actually dealing with everyone who wants to know why you were in the women's jail, which wasn't an issue for me, but it would be an issue for this middle-aged guy who was middle class and had a wife and kids. And dude, this is not going to end the way you think it's going to end.
Yeah,
all of your customers are going to stop doing business with you. Your wife is going to divorce you. Your kids are going to stop speaking to you. Your parents are going to stop speaking to you because you're weird now.
I mean, I'm a musician still, and I lost about half my audience.
Ah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm forming a new musical project. We actually just did a concert on July the 4th at Forkfest. It was fucking terrible. Don't even get me started on that. But we found a lead singer, and she's great. She's a wonderful singer, and I wanted to bring her into the band. I was like, hey, look, you're not a lead singer, so let's bring in this lead singer. And the first thing one of the other guys says is, well, is she a libertarian? I said, No, she's a lead singer. I think you missed the part where I said she's a lead singer. Because well, I kind of want to stick to the theme of all of us being libertarians and anarchists. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go over here with the highly skilled lead singer. You guys go ahead and do your thing then. Because I have a talk radio show for making political statements. I have a band for making music.
3 out of the 4 people in the band are trans, so it's kind of
nice.
But that was more, it just kind of worked out that way more than
right
than it was intentional. And I was playing with the bass player first, who isn't. So
okay. Do you mind taking like 5 minutes so I can go and smoke a cigarette? Will that get in your way?
It will not. Let me make sure I pause. Remind me when you get back to actually unpause this properly, because I fucked it up the last 2 times.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't smoke in the house, and I badly need a cigarette.
Okay. Oh, I apologize for smoking.
No, it's okay. No, it's not all. It's no problem. I'll be right back then.
Okay. Aha! I actually did it right. Yay! I'll figure out Zoom by the time I actually don't need it anymore. You are from Mississippi.
I am.
Which you've being trans in Mississippi is not something I even want to think about, but
being anything in Mississippi is not good unless you're a straight cis white person. It's not typically worse for women there than it is for men, but being anything outside of that, it's unpleasant. Mississippi is the only state in the United States where more than 50% of the population is a single religion. That's not true in any other state, but it goes beyond that. More than 50% of the population is a single denomination of that religion, and that denomination is Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist, of course.
Yeah. Alabama doesn't have that takeover of Christianity or Southern Baptist. Neither does Tennessee or Arkansas. But Mississippi, more than 50% Southern Baptist. And they are the fire and brimstone. When I was young, my family actually, my father and my grandmother, my uncle, they actually had us marching through the woods behind our house with rifles, training us for when the Antichrist took over during Y2K. These were some of my earliest experiences with things, was having my father tell me, okay, we're going to rake out a 3-foot perimeter of leaves around the house. And if you hear a crunch, you turn and you shoot. No questions asked. And I'm just some little kid here being told this shit, being told that the Antichrist is about to take over the world and he's using the Y2K bug to do it. And they have these bunkers that they buried in the ground and they were stockpiling coke. So on December 31st, 1999, we're all hanging out in these bunkers, scared, terrified that the world is about to end. Not your usual Y2K hysteria.
No.
But beyond that, it's Y2K hysteria plus the religious aspects of being convinced that the computer binary code is 666. My family believed that shit.
Yes.
And they taught it to us. So as little kids, we're being trained like the freaking Lord's Resistance Army in South America to fight for our lives and to be executed. I've got my father telling me, I'm just a little kid. I got my father telling me shit like, look, if they put a gun to my head and if they put a gun to your head and they say they're going to shoot you, if I tell them I believe in Jesus, you're going to die that day. What the fuck kind of thing is that to tell a kid? So it wasn't your usual Mississippi upbringing on top of just the standard Mississippi upbringing just being horrific by itself. It was that on top of that. And then you add in being trans on top of that. And it's just a total shit show throughout my entire life. It's amazing I have any sense at all.
Well,
and many people would say that's debatable.
I'm working on it. No, I'm kidding. The funny thing I always found out about the doomsday preppers, the Antichrist is going to come and you will have all the tribulation and shit. Um, Lots of faith in not being raptured there, people. Uh,
Well, they didn't believe in the rapture, right? But there's three types of Christians. I don't remember what they call themselves now, but there's the pre, the during, and the post, basically. And there's one section that believes that the rapture will come prior to the rule of the Antichrist. There's one that
right.
believes it will happen during, and there's one who believes it will happen after. Based on my readings of the Bible, because there was a time when I was young and I wanted to learn, I wasn't willing to accept what they were saying about the religion that they were teaching me to believe, and I went to the actual source. I didn't find a fucking thing about the rapture in the Bible. There is the one comment from Jesus about how two will be in the fields, one will be taken, one will be remaining, and there is the one thing from the book of Daniel, which is sort of similar, but
Yeah.
there's nothing in the book of Revelation about all of the Christians just magically disappearing. And besides that, the entire point of the tribulations as laid out in the book of Revelation, according to St. John, was that it was a trial, it was a period of trial and tribulation for fucking Christians.
Yes.
And they're like, no, we get to skip all of that by magic of this thing that isn't actually in this book.
Well,
So
I did not know that that Southern Baptists were post-millennialists. It's like
some of them are, some of them aren't. I mean, it varies. The part of Southern Baptism that we belong to,
yeah,
was that. But then Timothy LaHaye and Terry Jenkins came out with the Left Behind series, and suddenly all of that changed, and everyone in my family became convinced that there would in fact be a rapture, which is interesting because, I mean, Paradise Lost did exactly the same sort of thing to Christianity, where it was this work of fiction that was based on Christianity, and you fast forward a little bit and it's somehow interwoven into the Christian mythos, where they're like, oh no, Lucifer is a fallen angel, but there is none of this in this fucking book you're talking. There is none of this in the Bible.
no, there isn't.
But Milton wrote about it in Paradise Lost, and now you believe it as though it's part of your actual theology, and your theology doesn't say anything about this. It does have the book of Revelation where a passage in there talks about the dragon sweeping a third of the stars from the sky, and that's the only connection between Lucifer in Paradise Lost and Lucifer in the Bible. And even then, that's at the end of the world, right?
Well,
But they don't care.
They also use the Book of Enoch, which has popped itself into popular culture, even though it's not in.
You say Enoch?
Yeah.
That was from the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And the Gnostic section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
lost books of the Bible, or so they're called.
Yeah, they're interesting.
Their whole religion is interesting. I love watching how it's just been corrupted into being something completely. Jesus would hate these fucking people. He would hate every single one of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm more like Jesus than any of them. And when I say like Jesus, I don't mean I'm actually like Jesus, but Jesus would approve of me a lot more than he would any of them. Until I said that, at which point Jesus would just be like shaking his head like, no, you arrogant, stupid twat. Will you stop being arrogant?
Yeah, I mean, well, I went through an angry atheist phase too, so, but my degree
So did I.
My degree is theology, believe it or not, which I did not accept.
I'm happy to no longer be an angry atheist, but I certainly used to be one. I think I probably had pretty good reason to be an angry atheist based on, the bunkers and the hunkering down, being terrorized and convinced that the world was about to end at a very young age. I mean, it's not good stuff to do to a child.
No. How did you? This I don't know because when you were on Fluid Voice, we started to talk about it and then we sort of skipped off into another direction because that's, well, it's the way I do things too. How did you make your way up to New Hampshire?
Well, After being a militant atheist for a while, well, shit. It's a weird story. I didn't first make my way to New Hampshire. I knew I wanted to leave the South, right?
Right.
I didn't exactly know why, but I knew I wanted to because it sucked there. So I had this girl that I had been talking to off and on, a childhood friend who I had dated before and who wanted to pursue a romantic relationship with me. And we had been talking about this for years, but nothing ever lined up. And then suddenly it did. So I went to Las Vegas, and she turned out to be an absolute psychopath, like a literal psychopath. And it was really screwed up. She took everything from me, and I returned to Mississippi with fucking nothing. And it left me trying to pick up the pieces of my life. And during that process, I remembered all of this shit from my childhood of, being friends and being able to sit and I.
Oh wait, you're roboting a little bit, so and now you're frozen.
Is that better? Can you hear me? Everything I can still hear you. Video still moving for me.
Okay, yeah, I've got you back. So
Okay.
you had just returned to Mississippi, picking up the pieces.
Yeah, and I had to ask myself some really uncomfortable situations, like, why is it that when this girl broke up with me in high school, my first thought was to kill myself? This, not in a manipulation tactic kind of way. I never expressed that to her, but that was my first thought. And why is it that I keep pursuing this one particular type of woman, this slender brunette, over and over again, to the point of absolute self-destruction, to the point where I left my business, I left my family, I left everything except my 2 cats to move to Vegas to be with this girl who matched this archetype that I had in my head. And I wanted to know why. Why is it that I'm willing to engage in these self-destructive behaviors? What is it am I pursuing?
Yeah.
And I connected all of those dots and realized that I was trying to almost parasitically derive from them a reflection of what I wanted to be. And that was not easy for me to face. It was like, the reason I kept chasing after these slender brunettes is because if my hair wasn't dyed, that's literally what I am, is a slender brunette. And I couldn't face that. The closest I could come was to experience that vicariously through them. And that's why this psychopath in particular had that level of power over me, even though she didn't even know all of this, right? But all of those weaknesses were there in my mind, and they were exploitable, whether she meant to or not. And of course, she meant to find other things to exploit about me. And that was where she failed, because she tried the whole gaslighting thing with, no, you're misremembering that. And I was like, you picked the wrong one, girl. If there's anything I'm 100% solid about, it's my memory and my sanity. So she failed on that note, but she did succeed in breaking me nonetheless. But I'm thankful for that, because I remembered all of this and I connected all of these dots, and I realized that, I was trying to live vicariously through these girls that I was dating, often at extreme risk to myself and to my well-being and to my goals in life.
Yeah.
And so finally, I started expressing that. Of course, when you first come out as trans, you unless you're extremely fortunate, you have a lot of money, you have to live a double life. You have to continue working as the gender that you've been identifying as, or at least I did, because this is Mississippi.
Right.
So it was a matter of, for years, I would wake up, I would put on male clothes, I would remove any traces of eyeliner or whatever, and then I would go to work. I would get off work at 5 o'clock. I'd come home. I'd put my makeup back on. I'd hopefully find something to do, but usually not, because this is the Deep South, and the only place I can go and not be attacked is a gay bar. And I don't know what the gay bar scene in New York is like, but in Mississippi, there's only one kind of gay bar, and it's a sex bar, and that's not my scene.
Where I live, there are six gay bar LGBT bars of various
I guess I should call them
types.
LGBT bars rather than gay bars. So thank
Well,
you for that.
it's if it's a gay bar, it's a gay bar. There's one that's it became specifically a gay bar. They said they don't want the trans people anymore.
Oh wow,
So
that sucks.
but yeah, within about a 3-4 block radius. So got a lot of picking. And there's one for us older queers, you know.
Well, there are like 3 in Memphis, Tennessee, but they're all within that area. It's not a place you want to go to relax and have a drink and maybe meet someone and maybe start a relationship. No, it's
Yeah.
a pickup bar. If you go there, that's what everyone thinks you're there for, is to get laid, because that's what everyone else is there for. And that's not my thing. I've never been into that. So most of the nights I would just sit there doing my thing and in my makeup, in my women's clothes, minding my own business, not bothering anyone, and then going to sleep, waking up the next day and doing it all again. At some point
Ouch.
during all of this, I started writing a blog that I called Anarchist Shemale. I started doing a podcast. I started on YouTube because I was like, I'm too creative to not be creating things.
Yeah.
And not that may have sounded arrogant, but I just have too much creative energy. So I'm constantly creating something, right?
I'm a writer and a musician. You can't be too arrogant.
Okay. So I just began throwing, I began throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck. And as it turned out, I'm actually a really good writer. And I've known this because I've been writing my entire life. I've written several books. The first book I completed was when I was in the 10th grade. It was freaking terrible, but it was a full-length book that I wrote when I was in the 8th and 9th and 10th grade. So yay.
Yes,
so the most
same.
successful thing was the website anarchistshemale.com, which had all of my writings on it, all of my takes on the news and the world, coming at it from an anarchist perspective. And that happened to get picked up by someone who did a show called Call to Freedom, a Muslim guy named Will Coley. He invited me to come onto his show one night, and I did it, and it was great. And he invited me back on the next week, and then again the next week. And it left me in kind of a gray area for a little while because I didn't know if I was supposed to just come back on the show the next week. So I didn't just come back onto the show the next week. At that point, he had been inviting me on. He didn't invite me on. Okay, cool. I can take a hint. But as it turned out, he intended for me to become a co-host, and he just failed to mention that to me. So he moved up to New Hampshire to start a mosque. And he kept asking me, when am I going to move up to New Hampshire? When am I going to move up to New Hampshire? And he happened to have an extra ticket to the Porcupine Freedom Festival that year. I think it was 2017. And I came up here. Yeah, it would have been 2017. And I came up here with him. And like I said, that was the first time that I didn't have to become a male during the day. You know, right. I could just be who I wanted to be. And that's what I did. I came up here and I experienced that. And I was like, and received no judgment whatsoever. It was fantastic. It was world changing. It was life changing. And then I had to go back to Mississippi, back into being a male during the day, being a female at night. And that sucked. So I knew the next year when I went back to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, I was coming to stay.
Good.
And that's exactly what I did.
Well, I'm glad you found a home, for gosh sakes.
And I realized that was probably a lot longer version of the story than you were interested in, but that was how it all happened.
No, trust me, someone can talk for an hour and I will be, okay, that's cool. And I recognize the reflection too. I mean, the first Mrs. Abby is a short redhead. So, you know. Yeah. Short redhead with an attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody in my family will, oh, she's just like you. Yeah, I know.
All of these self-reflection caused me a lot of problems at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, where I dated this girl who was, I don't know how to say this, but she reminded me of my mother in a totally non-sexual way.
Yeah.
Like there were just similarities that as I continued dating this girl, I couldn't deny. She kept dating abusive men. She was an alcoholic. She couldn't get her life together. She was constantly struggling with herself, and just all over her, I saw these characteristics of my mother. which left me, because of all of this self-reflecting I have done, right, about the trans issue and about why I was letting these women manipulate me in the way that I was and why I was manipulating myself in order to be with them. So when I began dating this girl and I saw these similarities, I was like, oh my God, is the reason that I'm interested in this girl because I subconsciously saw my mother in her? Is this an edible complex? What's going on here? Of course, it turned out to be none of that. It just, this is a cute girl who I'm interested in. And then I learned all this stuff about her after that. But
Yeah.
all of that self-reflection, man, you can get inside your own head and start fucking with yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It's a it's one of the worst things about it is, oh, here are the signs, except I didn't have signs. I knew I was trans when at 11 when Renee Richards actually gave a name for it, you know.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know the word until I was probably 24, 25 years old. I mean, the closest thing I knew to trans throughout most of my life was shemale.
Yeah. And
that's not good for its own reasons, because that's all porn and that's just fetishizing trans people. I mean, I do love trans people sexually, don't get me wrong, but I mean, and that was why I started calling myself the anarchist she-male. It wasn't meant to be pornographic or anything like that. It was meant to take back this word that is a pretty good word for describing to people what I am when they ask. You know, I don't have to explain, well, I'm a male to female, non-op, transsexual person. I just go, oh, I'm a she-male. And they go, oh, okay, well, that's something I understand.
One of the yeah, I'm sure my audience is going to ask why I don't push back on that, but I get your reasons, and I'm kind of like, your reasons make sense, and you call yourself what you want. I don't, it's not up to me.
Well, I wouldn't say that any other male to female trans person is a she-male, unless you wanted me to refer to her as a she-male. That's not a label I'm going to put on anyone else, because I recognize that it's kind of an offensive label. It's not at all a fair way to categorize all male to female trans people. It simply isn't.
No.
It's the way I choose to characterize myself, because I do prefer to be, believe it or not, I realize I've been extremely long-winded tonight, but I do prefer to be succinct. If someone asks me, what are you? What's going on here? I'm a she-male. They instantly and immediately understand that. But if I say, you know, I'm a non-op male to female trans person, then they go, what does non-op mean? Or, I mean, they probably understand male to female, but they're going to ask what non-op means. And then I have to explain that. And I can avoid all of those awkward conversations that I shouldn't probably be having with a stranger by just saying, well, I'm a she-male.
Yeah, although people would get a non-op now, I think.
I don't know. Would they? I get a lot. Are you pre-op or post-op? I get that a lot.
Yeah, I get it a lot too.
And it's like, I'm non-op. And I don't know why that's complicated, but
yeah, and I don't get it, but it's not for me to get it, because it's your body and it's your gig.
True.
You know.
Yeah.
So we've gone way over time, which means I'm
sorry.
No, fuck. It was wonderful. I loved talking to you. It's why I wanted you on the thing after we did the fluid voice.
It was fun to be on.
Yeah. I hope so. I was going to say like I know whether it was or not.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
Yes, I did too, and you're welcome back anytime to dish or whatever, or hang. I got to do the YouTube prayer, because otherwise the YouTube gods do not actually favor me. So if you like what you see, like what you heard, I'm not sure if this will be split up in two, so I might have to tack this on to the end of the first part as well, so you'll get a repeat of it. If you like what you see, please consider liking, giving it a like down there, subscribe, hit the bell, because you'll receive notifications. and I have a PayPal, and I have a coffee, and I have a Patreon, and all of these things are in sore need of love. So, as, as are we all. I'm really terrible at this. I hate shilling for myself, so just the things, the things, and to everybody, your life matters, your voice matters, and you matter. And thanks again, Aria, for coming on. This was really fun
Thanks for
for
having
me
me.
as well. Oh, again, anytime, anytime. And I suppose that's it. We'll see you soon. I suppose if I'm doing Star Trek stuff recently, I should live long and prosper. But
I'll go with peace.
yes. And thanks again. Good night.